I'm Doug Jessup.
And I'm Nisha Nagaring, and welcome to Family Heritage Stories, where we talk about what makes us, things like traditions, values, and culture.
How are these things passed down from generation to generation? Through deeds, through words, and through stories.
What does a hero mean to you? To me, it's ordinary people doing extraordinary things. It's time for Hero Salute Stories.
Cowboy Bill. How did you get the nickname Cowboy Bill?
They put it on me in Vietnam. I worked for a guy named Bobby Hadaway, who was over battalion logistics. I was transferred for whatever reason from Bravo Company, which I'd been in for about 7 years, infantry, to headquarters company with an old first sergeant who needed help. He took me with him. So I wound up working under Bobby Hadaway in Vietnam, who was logistics. I did the radios all for Bobby back to battalion headquarters. What a tremendous individual and a great opportunity for me. Don't know how we got there.
Now, I'm going to start a little bit at the beginning and just the beginning.
Yeah. Okay.
So where'd you grow up?
Eden, North Carolina, cotton mill town.
Tell me, what was childhood like down there?
There wasn't much childhood. It was pretty rough. I guess about 9 years old, we went just here and yon. Dad drove a truck, and about 9 years old, he decided he couldn't handle life anymore. Deserted us in a peach orchard in Winston-Salem, cold wintertime, 1951, and it was dog eat dog. We went from family to family after that. Turned 17, and I knew that I needed to be in the military. I knew that I'd get fed, have a place to stay, and get clothes, which I'd never had. So I got my aunt to tell a fib for me, signed me at 17, 142 pounds soaking wet. Can I tell you a real quick story about the induction center? Got to the induction center at Fort Jackson, and they gave us a duffel bag, and they had clothes stacked up along the rail, and I'm putting stuff in. Got 3 pair of shoes, new pair of shoes that nobody had ever wore, and I got down and they had 5 sets of fatigues, pants, 5 sets of fatigue shirts, and underwear, which I never had. And here's this great big tall guy, E4, Spec 4, it's Corporal, same thing, standing behind the counter, passing it out and moving us along, whatever. And I thought maybe he would just wanted me to take one, because it was really, so, sir, you had to say, no matter what, Buck, Private, Green, sir, what am I supposed to do with this stuff? He looked at me across the counter. Put that stuff in that bag and get out of here, and I don't never want to see your ugly face in here again. And scared me to death. So that was my first day at induction center at Fort Jackson, but it got better. It got better. I love those guys. I love the cadre that tried to teach me and worked with me. I was underweight, and they kept looking at me everywhere I went. Come here, boy. Sir, how old are you? They knew. They knew. But I did well. Qualified with the M1 rifle, and made it 26 miles to bivouac. And you probably know the story about basic training. Left there, and I went back home. I didn't like. This was reserve. 6 months. Didn't like the National Guard. They were just lackadaisical, come in civilian clothes. I didn't have anything else to wear. I thought, this is not the Army. I re-enlisted. But it was over 90 days, Had to go back through basic training, right back to Fort Jackson.
So did you see that same clothes guy?
I did. Yeah, right back to Fort Jackson, and he said, you know what? He told me, he said, I knew you'd be back.
Got a whole new set of clothes, right?
I knew you'd be back, and I don't know that he ever, it caught me off guard. So finished basic, went straight to Panama, put 2 years Panama, re-enlisted for Fort Benning for whatever the reason, I do not know. But I wanted out of infantry, and re-enlisted for transportation. I just wanted to work around transportation. That's all. I just wanted a motor under me. So they sent me transportation Fort Benning, 13th transportation Fort Benning. I was in hog heaven. I was an E4. They had never had an infantry guy come through the truck driving school, so I did PT for them every morning, and wound up at convoy. And I was just, it was the greatest thing. This was the beginning, I think, of my life as I knew it. Had everything. Had a car, bought a car. And in about 90 days, I'm sitting in the barracks waiting on my assignment for the next day. Report to headquarters company. Go to headquarters. Monday morning, you're going to report to Kelly Hill. This unit, same unit, to Kelly Hill. Why? Because you're drawing propane from Panama for heavy weapons. I said, well, you take the money. You take the money, $50 a month. You take the money, let me stay here. We can't do that. So this was beginning of formulating, and we had no idea what was going to happen to us. Even up to the last minute, we had no idea. So we went to Fort Benning and met these guys here. What a great life. Some of the greatest men I had ever known in my entire life. World War II was still there. Korea was still there. And here I was watching them today. So July 1965, that'd be 60 years ago. This month. They called us out on the parade field. We were 2nd Infantry Division, 23rd Infantry Regiment, but experimental 11th Air Assault Division with new helicopters. Changed us over that day. They brought the colors, CAV colors from Korea, where they had been since '53, sent the 2nd Infantry Division colors to Korea, and made us the 1st Air Cav Division.
What's that hat mean to you?
You know, it was a long time before I got this. My wife got it for me. I just kept looking at them. I'd love to have one of them. And it represents the 305 names on panel 3E and all those who came back also. You know, there are 2 rules with war, right? Rule number 1 is young men are going to die, and the ones that don't die will be left with a devastating residue for the rest of their life, and that's me, and a lot of others. And rule number 2 is you can't change rule number 1. I've got one of my radio operators. I had a radio section. I furnished radio operators for Colonel Moore, Battalion Commander, XO, operations, and all the others. And they put me with this great gentleman, Bobby Hadaway, who would retire as a colonel, live at Springfield, Virginia, and he was just a nice individual.
So describe your first day in Vietnam.
Got in, okay, beach landing, quiet, uninterrupted, quiet beach landing at Quin Yon. They put us on the helicopter pod the hospital pod. They did. I guess they didn't have Hueys available. Picked us up on the CH-53 that had the pod to sit down over the pod and latched it up until rode a pod to An-Khe, a little town called An-Khe, which is about halfway between Quy Nhon and the Cambodian border. That would be our home for the next few years. And that first night, pitched tents. I pitched tents with Sergeant Williams, I guess, and we were on a little slope. They put us in a rice paddy. We didn't. We had never seen a rice paddy. I had never seen one. It was on the slant going to the rice paddy. They brought this square box about this big, about this square, about this high, set it down in front of us. I had one of the World War II boys come up and say, "Come here and show them how to eat this." K rations left over from Korea, Second World War in Korea. But we got into them. You'd have this big tube about that long, about that big. Take the key and open it up, and you cut your bread 10 slices, and lima beans, camp pinto beans. Pork and beans, and whatever else you could find. And some of it was good, and some of it you wanted to use it for target practice. So, so that was the first night. It rained that night, and we found some of the guys' tents the next morning down by the motor pool where the rice paddy was at. They just threw it up and forgot to clean around it, dig a ditch around it so it turned to water. And I'm not sure, when it rained, those raindrops as big as my thumb. It just poured down a lot. And of course there was a dry season. January, February would be the dry season when you would not get any rain. But we were just in rain for a year, about a year. Sometimes the choppers could fly. If it was a light rain, heavy rain, grounded, called it off. But and then we had our first little incursion, I guess, about a week after that. They wanted to get everybody experience and get the jitters out of you. So being in headquarters company, I was not going to get a combat infantry badge. So I wanted one. So I told them, put me out on an outpost. And they did. They volunteered. And this great Sergeant Major Plumley, that goes with this outfit, he was the number 2 man. Not the operations officer, not the intel officer, not the lieutenants, not the mess cook. He was number 2. And people were just scared to death of him. He had jumped for 101st. I think this is correct. I think the book may correct me. When you run across this book called We Were Soldiers Once and Young, you'll find every word, and I've read it front to back, back to front. Every word in this book is absolutely correct, written by my commander and several different people. But so he jumped in Second World War, he jumped in Korea, and here he is, this old man, along with some other World War II guys in Vietnam, 1965. And I wondered, what in the world did they bring him over here for? But I soon found out that they had the experience and I didn't.
Leading by example.
Yes, absolutely true. And we learned to live with that the whole year. We do pretty well until Sunday morning, November the 14th, about 11 o'clock, 1965. They had reconned over next to the Cambodian border and found 2 regiments of North Vietnamese. First time we'd had any contact with North Vietnamese, because we were north, we were up north. They'd put us in to try to keep the North Vietnamese from getting to Saigon. All right, so we were the only unit up there at this point. So we wound up over next to the Cambodian border. You could hear the B-52 softening up the airstrip, the LG X-ray. And there were about 3 LGs, X-ray, Columbus, and I can't remember the other one where the commo and everything's set up. But about 11 o'clock they took off. They could get about 25 or 30, depending on the Huey, with a fully loaded combat troops. On a good day, you get 7, maybe 8, if the air is light. But otherwise, it'd be about 7 to get off the ground. And they made that first. They sat down with those Moore, Colonel Moore at the time, Commander, Matt Dillon. Greg Dillon was his name. Called him Matt. He was a brain we called him the brains of the outfit. He was operations officer. He knew a map inside, upside down. I mean, he was just good at what he did, coming out of West Point. And they let him do it. Colonel Moore let him do it. When he had commanders, when he had people in charge, he let them do their job and required them and trusted them. And so what they got in and they were there about 30 minutes and they got hit. They had sent out a recon from the mountain over in Cambodia, and it was just a short ways over there. But we couldn't go. Johnson had us where we couldn't go into Cambodia. Laos, none of that. All that was off duty. I mean, just off limits, every bit of it. So they got hit and started taking fire. We got calls at Holloway for, first thing was ammo, if I remember correctly, and it's all in the book. And I stand to be corrected on some of it. It's been a few days ago. So, ammo, water, bandages, and I'm thinking, this is my first experience at this. What do they want bandages for? True story. I soon found out. It already hit some of the guys out in the LZ before they got off the heli. Bob Willett turned out to be, I was going to be Moore's driver. And he'd wanted me to be his driver, and Sergeant Major Plumley said, no, I've assigned him to headquarters company to work with Bobby Hadaway to make sure we get ammo, rations, water, and all that stuff. All right, so Bob Willett, Moore's radio operator, jumped off of the first chopper, and boom, right in the steel pot, right in the middle of the steel pot, boom, right on the ground, with his radio and everything. And this was going on, and reading the book, you can see where every man was at. You knew what they were thinking. You could feel that just by the book. Anyway, Bob had got hit in the steel pot. It went through the steel pot, and the helmet liner caught it and knocked him out. So Sergeant Keaton and Calvin Bognite, the medic, found him laid on the ground, and Keaton kicked him. I guess that was a way to see whether there was any life left in him or not. I don't know. Probably. Kicked him, and Bob raised up. Keaton thought he'd went to sleep. That was funny in one respect. Another, it was not. But Bob lasted the entire year as Moore's radio operator. And so the second day, that night, he dug them in all across the front, and they sent out feelers that afternoon. Late that afternoon, they sent out a patrol just to see. They had never fought Americans as a unit, and so they wanted to see what they were up to, how they could fight us. Sent out a patrol, and they came down one side of the mountain, crossed across a dry creek bed, and one of our lieutenants took off after them and took his platoon after him, and they cut him off. Stayed out there for like 3 days, lost half the platoon. Yeah. Couldn't get to him. That would be the lost platoon with Henry Herrick. But after all these years, you know, I remind them when we go to reunions, wait a minute, before you start blaming Henry Herrick, nobody knows how he was brought up, who knows what he was thinking. He hadn't went to West Point.
I'm gonna change subject for a quick second. We're here at the Vietnam Veteran Wall, and there
F-35s flying over us.
Oh man, I don't care how much money they waste on them. Take every dime I've got.
Isn't that the
and fill
coolest thing?
Take every dime I got and fill it up. I do not care.
Well, from what I understand, X-ray and this particular offense, it was the first time they'd ever used B-52s.
Yes. All right. So they softened at 10 o'clock. They softened the place up with B-52s, and you could see them and you could hear them. And so we knew what they were doing. We knew what they were doing. But on Monday is when the mess really started flying, and it got so thick that Moore had just run out of options. They had us outnumbered, 1,600. We finally got some of our people in. Later on, we had two brave helicopter pilots, too tall Ed Freeman and Bruce Crandall would go in, they would take ammo in, they would take water in, they would take bandages in, they took sea rations in, and they would bring wounded out under fire. And those two men would later, after we came back to the States, be awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor. Ed Freeman now is resting in Boise. So that next day, I lost a squad leader that I'd been with for 4 years. He taught me everything. Knew his wife. He had a little girl right before we left Fort Benning that he just loved. That's all he talked about, his little baby girl. And then we were gone. So that next day really brought havoc on Moore's outfit. He got to a point to where he had to call in F4s to reinforce with napalm. The movie will show that. The movie doesn't, and I hope I don't want to get in trouble with this because they meant well making the movie, but then Hollywood got a hold of it. But we had to call it in right on top of us. The napalm. There was no other way. It was 400 of us and 16 of them, 1,600. 2 regiments, 2 complete North Vietnamese regiments, and they just couldn't handle the firepower. We lost so many good men. I guess the one that I think, if I can tell you about one, my medic, Spec 5, Calvin Bognite from Washington, D.C. Calvin was a conscientious objector, no weapon, but he had a medic's bag, and he tried to patch up everybody that he possibly could. Willie Mitchell, same way, conscientious objector from Pennsylvania, and they tried to patch everybody they could. But it cost both of them their lives. But Calvin had been really, and I were really close. I called him, when I last saw him, he was just a little boy. So I often refer to him as the kid. We were both born in 1941. But he worked on me. I had some back problems, and he would take me to the dispensary at Fort Benning before we left to go over, lay me down on the table and get a tray of ice cubes out of the freezer and melt every one of those ice cubes on my back. Now get up, walk out. Such a great, always Sergeant Smith, how are you? So mild-mannered, so mild-mannered. He stands out. And then Paris, Dush. I don't know how we survived to get back. Some of us did. And then those are the ones, we're the ones that left with the residue. That shows up every time we see this.
How many names on that wall do you know? If you had to guess.
40 that I ate sea rations with, and that's what hurts. We would sit on the ground and talk about our families. Sometimes we stretched it a little bit. Sometimes we would stretch the story a little bit, but we knew each other, knew what kind of car each other had. We rode with each other to work when cars didn't work.
So you mentioned reunions. Why reunions? Why are those important?
We love those. We still love those guys. I've got 3 company commanders still living. Tony Nadal, Alpha Company, Bob Heron, who was commander of Bravo Company, which I was in for about 3 years, and Bob Edwards, who almost didn't make it. Bob, when he got shot, he pulled one of our other soldiers over top of him so they would think he was dead, and he laid out there in that ground. When he got him into Holloway, his mouth had almost turned wrong side out from lack of water and blood. Bob's still living, still kicking. So we honor those. They will always be our company commander. Mower's buried with his wife, Julie, at Fort Benning. I don't know, are you aware of the fact that they changed the name from Fort Benning to Fort Mower for a short time? My wife and I were honored to be special guests over there with a couple of other guys who could come on that day. And the general treated us very, very well that day. The place was full. It was just packed. And fed us dinner. And then I got to go back to Kelly Hill. That hurts. Still hurts. I don't know why I go. I'll take a snack and I'll sit there and watch them come and go. But I don't recognize any of them. So the hat represents all of those on the wall, all those that are still living. I've got a radio operator in the hospital, VA hospital in St. Louis, can't walk. I've got a radio in New Hampshire that's doing fairly well because he didn't go out on patrols. He ran the operations tent. I called Moore's radio operator, one of them, last year and sent him some stuff that I had, Al Bossy. Sent him some stuff that I thought he would like to see, maybe to, it's been almost 60 years now. Never heard back from him. I got a letter back about a month later from his son. And Dad passed away in February. So that's the story, and it just keeps going. I guess one day there'll be an end to it, but right now we have a few precious ones. We just get together in a quiet resolve of what happened. Nobody likes what happened. They say that we lost the war. We didn't lose the war. We never lost a battle. We lost men. We never lost a battle. We did what we were supposed to do. Unfortunately, they turned it. We would go into an area. I remember one area that we went in 3 different times. Take it, get it settled, get the families back in their homes. We would get on a helicopter and leave, and here they come. Three different times. A place called Bong Sun. Lost a lot of good men at Bong Sun. So, so the hat represents all those that are still kicking. And then when we go to the reunion, it's just, how have you been doing? It's just, how are you getting along? How's your family? We found some of them. We found one, SP4 Los, who was with the Lost Platoon, worked on the Lost Platoon. They went looking for him and found him under a bridge. The PTSD just got him. He said, "I don't, leave me alone. I just want to be here." So John Heron, he had been assigned to John Heron Bravo Company, and John got him straightened up for a short while, and then we found that he'd taken his life. Just couldn't handle everyday life. I think we wake up a lot of times. Where's my boots? I'm not familiar with this stuff that I've got to put on.
What was it like coming home?
Pardon?
What was it like coming home?
I was lucky. I don't know what happened. They sent me to Fort Richard, Arizona. So I was one of the first lifts coming out, and we got to Anchorage, and everybody felt good. Got to Travis, and they locked us up inside of a building, and you can't go outside. Why? I said, "Well, you got a uniform on." We don't understand that. Well, the protesters had shown up, protesting the war. That would be 66. August 66, I think it's when, yeah, August 66. And so I remember all the airlines were on strike except Delta. We had to buy a first class ticket from LA, San Francisco. Then they took us to Dallas and everybody off because there was a line in Dallas to get back home. We finally got to Atlanta, I think about 4:30 in the afternoon that day. So, and then it started. I did not know that I had a problem. I thought everybody in the world was wrong and I was right because I'd been to fight. So all of y'all are wrong. Everybody was wrong. Severe anxiety, depression, and it just flip-flopped from one day to the other. Severe case of PTSD, and I had no idea what that was. I had no idea. I finally learned about 3-4 years after that when they started talking about Spec 4 Los and how that worked and tried to get me to the VA. I went through 23 jobs. I've counted them. Sometimes I'd work a job a half a day. I think, I don't know anybody here. I don't know anybody here. I don't belong here. I just left. Still did not know that I had these problems. And drove my first wife crazy. I mean, literally insane. And she's now buried not too far from us in Warner Robins. And then my current wife, bless her soul, when they shipped my first wife back to town, she went and dressed her for the funeral. I don't know if I've ever seen that or not, but if it wasn't for her, I would have given up a long time ago. And for Max stoned to him when he come through town. And I find myself now that there's nobody in my family that we're really close to. I mean, we've got grandkids, got 7 grandkids, a new life that the Lord gave me through her. But sometimes I feel like I'm just not, I'm far removed from them. I love them to death. FaceTime call, we just always play together. But the other stuff still hangs around. So I have a psychologist. I finally found a psychologist with the VA. So they're treating me for severe anxiety, depression, PTSD, physically, prostate cancer, bone cancer, and COPD. But But the VA is doing everything that they possibly can to save me. They've made me a project, and they tell me, you better not die on me. And so they give me diet, put me on diets. I did for the prostate cancer, the hormone injection in the stomach every 6 months, and that's actually beat the prostate cancer down to around 0, 0.5, less than 1, and that's actually lower than a lot of people who are walking around.
Here comes the kids. Over there. You know, the funny thing is, you can't just say, there goes the boys, because
Right.
Hill Air Force Base has the honor of actually having is it commanding officer? Commander of the base is female, and one of the pilots, what's her
She's an F-35 demo team.
yeah, but she has a fancy name, not her real name, but her, yeah, there you go. Yes, because my grandson and I talk about her. He's going, oh yeah, yeah. Anyway, I want to circle around a little bit here, okay? How you doing, by the way?
Good.
Okay. Okay.
Good. Thank you for letting me come out. It hurts. No matter how hard I try, it hurts. But I'm grateful to you and Max for letting me come out and tell you about these guys.
That's kind of what the question I have is.
Okay.
Why is it important to remember these people's stories, to remember these names?
Oh, we can never forget them. They were a major part of our life. They fought to keep the communists out of this country. They fought for their wives, for their children, for themselves. They fought for each other. We fought for each other in the same foxhole, for each other. When one would die, we'd use each other's ammo. And so it goes. You can never forget these guys. I guess about maybe every 6 months, one will come and visit me. Not long. Just a glimpse.
What's something that people might not know about the unit, Company B, that you were with at LZ X-Ray?
We had been together since 1961. We went out on Monday, we came in on Thursday. Went out on Monday, came in on Thursday. Like I said, we knew each other so well in the same mess hall. All the NCOs. Oh, I wish you could have met some of the older boys from Korea, and some of the guys that I worked with. Finally Plumley promoted me to the sergeant major. The old mean, gruff sergeant major promoted me to E6, and he was oh my goodness. And I remember. I just remember. I've got the original book from Bravo Company at the house. I should have brought it. I've got pictures of all the boys, everyone, and I remember every one of them. Every one of them. The cooks, the mortar platoon, rifleman, Lieutenant Winchester, my platoon leader. They were just so close. I don't know if you can say this, they were more than family.
I'm going to ask a question that you can pass if it's too much, okay?
Okay.
From all the research and everything that I've done about this particular area, it's kind of like flying a plane, you know? In the middle, a lot of boredom. But the landings and the takeoffs, oh, that can get real interesting.
Yes.
Because, like you said, Hollywood gets a hold of things, and I think the impression was that you guys were under fire 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for a year. No,
that's correct.
Okay. If you can try to describe the sounds, the smell, what when you were under attack, what did it sound like? What did it feel like? Do you understand what I'm trying to ask?
Yes. Of course, now, all right, so we had fires going both ways. We had the rifle fire in front. We had 81s and 4.2s, 105s, and 8 inches howitzers way back, and you could hear them when they were. You could hear when they went over. They came over low. You could hear them, and when they hit, and so I guess that this is the first time I've ever had a chance to try to explain that, but the gun patter, the smell of it, I love the smell, and I'm almost afraid to say that, afraid it'll hurt somebody's feelings, but I love the smell, and that gun patter never goes away. It's part of the life that you live there. And the F-4s, watching them come in, talked to one of the pilots yesterday over at Bear Lake when we were passing through. but it's all of it together. The worst smell, the worst of it all, the worst. And you don't ever want to go there unless you have to, just to picking them up, putting them on a poncho, and putting them on an aircraft after they've laid out for a while, and then trying to identify them, going through their pockets, get their possessions out, and having to put them in a container and send them home. And these were the guys that I had supper with last night. We had sea rations together last night. What am I supposed to do? I guess it's not good to stay wrapped up in it all the time. I just can't. That's the reason I'm out here. That's the reason I'm out here, to keep from going to Fort Benning. I was just over there a few days ago to one of our friends' graduations. It just all comes out all over again. So it's good that I'm out here and not at Fort Benning.
Have you ever gone back to Vietnam?
No, we'll never. No. It was a nasty place. Unfortunately, they never had anything. They'd been fighting since '54, Dien Bien Phu, the French. And by the way, I got to command that outpost one night by myself, and it was not fun. So, it wells up inside you, and it just all comes back. And you couldn't. I know that some of them, the ones that really wind up taking their life, live it every day, and I just refuse to do that. I refuse to do that.
I'm winding up a little bit, and I want to kind of explain and see if you had a similar experience. So I interviewed the dust-off pilots,
yeah,
and they had vests with the names of their guys that didn't
yes.
come home. You have a hell of a lot more names. And we talked about the wall, and I was able to arrange an honor flight for all these guys.
I made one of those.
Okay. And a couple of the guys had the same experience, and they said they could watch over here. They had a really hard time coming to the wall itself.
I had the honor of taking, Sergeant Major Plumley, and I've talked to Max about this. I don't know why he liked me. He never said. He never He was just quiet. He just never said. I had the honor of taking him to the wall the first time. This is a man who had jumped, combat jump, Second World War, Normandy, jumped, combat jump, Korea, and here he is, our leader, and yet he had a hard time going to the wall. He promoted half of these guys on this wall. He was their daddy, their uncle, their cousin, their brother. He was their family. And they had so much, we had so much respect for this individual because he had set the example. And he was still here. And he was not going anywhere. He was still here. And so, let me tell you one real quick, one little story about Plumley.
Okay.
You'd meet him coming down, and we had to do this. You have to find something to laugh about. Even on the day that we got back off the operation, and we had already loaded them up on choppers and C-47s and put them in pray tell refrigerator boxes. You had to find something to laugh about, or you'd go stark raving mad. So we used Plumley. I guess he knew it. So he would be coming down, and we would do it on purpose. He would be coming in the morning or whatever, wherever you saw him, you would find yourself going toward in his direction, and you didn't even need to. Good morning, Sergeant Major. Who made you the damn weatherman? And kept walking. You never got a reply from him. I know that he liked me, and as well as he did some of the others, because I would do whatever he asked me to do. And my life meant nothing. If you don't mind,
yeah,
I saw
please.
a Korean conflict guy, Korean War veteran, coming down the hallway at the VA in Dublin, Georgia the other day, and I was going for my treatment, and I'm doing pretty good. I try not to complain. It hurts, but I try not to complain. I'm much better off than a lot of them because I don't smoke or drink and all that. But I'm watching this, his daughter pushing him in a wheelchair down the hallway, trying to get out, back out. I guess he'd had his infusion, and I thought, I'm not going to let him go by me. So I walked over in front of him and kind of stooped down. Korea? Yeah. I said, well, I just thought I'd stop you and tell you look like hell. And he just started dying. He was laughing. His daughter didn't know what to think. I'd never seen him before in my life, and probably won't ever see him again. But he needed that. He was still laughing when she wheeled him off down the street, down the hallway. So we need that.
Well, but every branch of the military likes to razz the other side.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Was that the same way during Vietnam?
No.
Really?
No.
Tell me.
No. If they were coming, like the 2nd Battalion of the 7th, this was Custer's outfit, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so they put me in the 1st Cav Division, Air Cav Division, 1st Battalion, 7th Cavalry Regiment, Armstrong Custer.
Just so you know.
And I was just standing there. I didn't do anything. I didn't ask for it. I didn't volunteer. They told me to fall out, and I was standing there. It's like my entire Army career. You go get on that truck, and I did. No hero. I am not a war hero. Never claimed to be. I was a nobody. Raised on welfare. Went in the military to get shoes and clothes. And that's the way it is.
Tell us about Rick Rescorla.
He was one of our platoon leaders, and on the original book, We Were Soldiers Once and Young, the one that Hal Moore and Joe Galloway initially put out, the big one, and I've got a copy of it. They've got Rick's picture walking through as he relieved our unit. All right, Rick did well. He survived the war. He stayed in, maybe took a tour back, I don't know, but retired a colonel, became the chief of security of Morgan Stanley in the Second World Trade Tower. He did. All right, so every month, Rick would get the bullhorn out and have his people get up and get out of here. Do we have to go through? Shut up and get out of here. He would make them go all the way downstairs, out on the street, every month, evacuate. I guess some chose to run, I don't know, but he got them out. When the number one tower got hit in 2001, September 11, 2001, when the first tower hit, he saw it. He saw and knew that was not an accident. Too much smoke. Rick was sharp. He was just sharp. So he got the bullhorn, got all 2,700 people out of number 2 out on the street and running down the street. And there's pictures of them. There's videos of them. All right, except a couple of stragglers that were handicapped. Went back up to get him, had his wife on the phone, Nancy on the phone, went back up to get him, was talking to her, and she's begging him to get out. You've done all you can do, get out. Can't do it, can't do it. Went back up looking for him and the tower fell on him. She came to, his wife came to several of our reunions, and I think it just got too much for her. She's still in New York somewhere up there. We haven't heard from her in a while, and I'm not going to try to contact her. Yeah. Such a hero, such a hero. And this book is full of them, real war heroes. And they're fixing to have a reunion the week of November 14th at Fort Benning, probably the last one. And they've issued a call for all of us to come over, and they're going to try to find as many helicopter pilots as they can. So, but Rick.
Just out of curiosity, and I realize it's going to be hard to pick, but the book aside, is there a particular act of heroism that you personally saw that just really is glued into your mind?
Tommy Keaton was our medical platoon sergeant, and I've told you about Calvin and what happened to him. Him and a guy named Sergeant Keith was his assistant. They're out on the battlefield trying to patch these people up with anything they can get, because we had not yet got all of the first aid stuff. I mean, they were going to division headquarters getting bandages. I mean, tons of them. A helicopter's full of them. It scared me to death. I mean, I'd never seen this. I'd never been in war. So Keaton was out doing tracheas on the battlefield. They were doing a trachea when Calvin got shot to save another man's life with a plastic tube. And I guess Willie Godbolt, a little black rifleman, had got hit, and his platoon leader was like in the next foxhole or really, really, really near. He comes over and shielded Willie while they tried to patch him up, and he got killed. Put his life over this little black boy, Willie Godbolt.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question that's a little hard to, and I realize this one might be a little much. Would you mind sharing what it was like the first time that you personally were bluntly been shot at under fire? sometimes go in threes. They always goes in
Always
twos.
at least two.
Always at least two. Just to give you an idea, I live 5 minutes from here. Okay. Never in a billion years would you buy a house next to an airport, but
Maybe.
but
It depends on
when
who
I
you are.
yeah, well, true. But you know, when I see, it's like I get an air show every day. It's
Yes.
the coolest
Yes.
thing.
Sound freedom.
All right, so I'm at Robbins with F-16s.
Yeah. Okay. You get it. Okay.
Yep. Not
Anyway.
not like here.
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
Not like here.
Okay.
These are 35s.
Yes, sir. Okay. Anyway, back to the
All right.
pretty serious question. You remember being the first time you were under fire?
Yes. I was without my unit. They were already out. They were out like 3-4 miles in front of me, engaged already, and we were in a rear area trying to get set up so we could resupply them. And it was dark. It was dark. You know, it's up front. I'm not involved in it. I may get called. I was always on call. Plumley would tell me, man, you have to go. If I call you, I want you up there. Yes, sir. The next helicopter, next chopper. All right, so we're trying to get set up, just moved in, and I had one rifle squad and a sergeant. We must have had maybe 7 or 8 guys, fully equipped, and the one sergeant. And they hit us on the back side over here, and I went and told the sergeant right away. I said, okay, I'm under your control. I'm under your control. Whatever you decide to do, we'll do it. I will go with you. I will follow you. I will be your rifleman. Anybody that says they were ever in combat without fear lied. So when the bullet, and if you hear, that wasn't the first time, you can hear if a bullet goes through a real tight CP tent, it pops. It's coming pretty fast, and you can hear the pop. That's close to home. We were in one more location with helicopter. We were guarding the helicopters over here, and those guys had already sacked out over here, and myself, I was in an area here in the CP tent, manning the radio with Earl King, who was a Marine at Iwo Jima, and here he is sitting beside me. We were good friends. Yes, he was sitting beside of me, and they started they hit the area where the helicopters were. It must have been, we don't know how many, but they hit over there, and I said, get your gun. He said, you crazy, I ain't going nowhere. Earl laid back down and went to sleep. I said, Earl, get up. No, he said, tell me when they get 30 yards from here and I'll get up. He fought the whole war like that. He was just, it was Earl. It was just Earl. So they finally got 2 helicopters raised, and there were rockets. We had 2.5, 24 on this side, 24 on this side. Young lieutenant fires the helicopter up, and they was hollering, get them off the ground, get them up, get them off the ground. And they were, of course, going to make a circle and hit the guys who was coming in, the North Vietnamese. And so he raised the front of the helicopter up, and his crew chief was not even on it. He raised it up and let both sections of the rockets go at one time. With just, I don't know, it just got shook, or I don't know, who knows what he was thinking. Nobody ever said anything about it, except it was neat to think that he was firing at them, and he was trying to get up to go fire at them, and pulled both triggers on that gunship going up. But we were getting hit. But thank goodness they got the fire put out before they got over to us. But it was not fun. But you remember that. All of the gunfire. You remember almost every round.
How do you want to leave your mark? How do you want to be remembered?
As just one of these guys. I was nothing special. I just had the uniform. I knew you guys, and one day we'll be together again.
It's our honor to be able to help people remember where they came from.
If stories are not passed down from generation to generation, the stories are lost, and it's as though those people never existed.
So how do you want to be remembered? With another episode of Family Heritage Stories, I'm Nisha DeGuerin.
And I'm Doug Jessup.